Well, we'll start with typical Q5s and the B5s for all your toxic and combustibles, but thanks for joining us today. I got Dave Wisey in here too. I'm sure most of you guys have talked to Dave from our tech support.
Morning, guys.
Morning.
He's the guy that'll do all the technical stuff. As I get older, I forget everything. But anyway, so all right, let's get started here. What's going on here? How come? There we go. Come on here. Is this working? Okay. All right, you guys see that second slide there? Hello?
Yep, we're good to go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Basically, we're going to do a quick overview of our gas detection system for toxic and combustibles. And if we have time, I also have another PowerPoint that covers the Freon detection system, which really doesn't take that long, but let's start here. Basically, in all of our toxic and combustible sensors, CO, NO2, methane, all those gases, there's 2-year warranty, 5-year warranty on our CO2 sensors. Different applications, of course, are, parking garages, chiller plants, auto services, warehouses, battery storage places. The next, the one that's not on here that we're doing a lot of CO detection in is boiler rooms. So we use the Q5 for that. That's becoming pretty popular too. So put that on your list of things to cover if you need more applications. A few of the parts that we're going to be covering today, of course, is the Q5 B5. Q5, of course, is the analog and the Modbus communication. The B5, of course, is the BACnet. Both sensors in the same enclosure. I'll get into the details here in a minute. The Q6 B6 is the combo unit. Same concept. BACnet. There's 2 sensors. The only difference between that is the display is on the CO sensor typically, and whatever gas, if you normal application be NO2, would not have the display. Reason for that is to help save costs on projects, and because everything is covered on the LCD screen on the CO, and which helps because when you mount the CO sensor at 5 feet, you'll be able to see both the NO2 and the CO, and you don't have to get down to 18 inches above floor to look at the LCD to see what's going on. So that's a nice feature. M controller, you guys are probably familiar with the M controller. I'll cover up to 32 digital points. Also has the analog out, can be Modbus or 4 to 20. Q controller, which is the BACnet IP, can also be daisy chained with 128 communicating sensors digitally if you have a bigger job that's over 32. QARF is the Freon detection sensor, and the Q8 is the explosion proof model. And we'll touch base on these as we go through here. Questions as we speak right now? All good? The 3 different controllers, we just kind of covered those. Q4C, which is a 4-channel, multiple or multi-channel controller, digital communication, just for really, really small jobs. For the cost, I tend to stay away from it. I tend to try to push customers into the M controller. It's more flexible with the inputs, outputs, and the 32 remote digital covers a lot more projects. You can also have an analog output cards, and why you would want that would be, let's say you've got a parking garage and you have VFDs on the fans and you need to control them through our controller and not the BAS. And this can be either Modbus 4 to 20 back to the controller. The Q controller, same concept, handles up to 128 points digitally or analog inputs, and also can communicate the backnet IP, if that's what your customer is looking for. Okay, Q5, B5. Basically here are the two differences. The Q5, you can use a standalone controller signal. It comes with 3 relays, 4 to 20 LCD, digital communication. You'd have to have a controller for that. But if you just want a standalone, going back to a fan, either via 4 to 20 or the relays, that would be good for that. The B5, of course, is the backnet version of that. Same features, 3 relays, LCD, horn buzzer, all of those features on that. As far as, I'm going to let Dave talk about power on these systems, 24 AC versus DC, and what we recommend.
So for 24 AC, you can use, can be used with the M controller and the Q5s. If we prefer using DC power. All these devices, the Q5 and the M controller, are full wave rectified, so we don't recommend sharing transformers. If you're going to use AC, we recommend a dedicated transformer for powering everything. If you can, DC power is a lot easier to work with and a lot less troublesome when it comes to wiring.
Okay. Some of the unique features that we have on our Q5s and B5s too, and this is on the CO only, that our sensors are UL 2075 listed. Some of our competition does not have that. They also come in basically IP66 or NEMA 4X rated enclosures, which is pretty huge too. If you're going into an environment that's definitely going to have some wash down to it, typically fire stations, maybe ambulances or truck facilities where they're going to be washing down, you may want to consider the splash guard on the front just to help protect the sensor. People always ask, of course, what's the typical lifespan on our sensors, the electrochemicals or the combustibles. A lot of that comes down to the gas concentration. We've got them installed for 7-8 years, and they're
terrified to have a.
Sorry about that. Excuse me. And it all depends on the concentration of gas. If it's real heavy concentration, it's going to degrade the sensors, no doubt about it. If a typical parking garage, it's going to last a lot longer than the typical specification, just because there's not going to be that high level of concentrated gas in that area. Now, if you get the methane or hydrogen or something like that, where it's always degrading on the sensors, it's typically not going to last that long. But that's kind of the theory behind all the gas. 2-year warranty on all of our gas products too, as you guys well know. Questions on these devices? Anybody?
Do I pay more for the backnet version?
No, they're the same price.
And then cost is always a concern for me. What was the cheapest model?
The cheapest model, there's a few of them. I think methane, CO, and NO2, we all have the same price. And as always too, and I'll get into the next slide, but it always depends on comes with the layout and how many sensors. And ACI can become flexible to help you guys be more competitive on projects. We can work with you on pricing, as we have in the past.
Thanks.
Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
And then here's a little comparison chart of basically our Q5 sensors versus our probably the strongest competitor out there, was the Honeywell Analytics E3 point. Of course, both of them are set up for wall and duct mount. The ACI version is a little bit smaller. Knockouts, we do have 2 knockouts on both sides. We have 3 lines of digital display that are backlit instead of 2. Our terminal blocks are removable, which is key when you pop the cover off. You just pull them out, especially if you got hands like mine. It makes it easier to install. Built-in clock. We have 3 relays, and they can be in any configuration. Honeywell doesn't offer any relays with the digital network. We can on our Modbus and BECnet versions. We are standard with the STL and a time-weighted average. We can display, if you go through the programming and you want to display the STL and the TWA, that's readily available, and also for logging each day. I think you have to have separate features on the Honeywell products for all that. We offer 4 to 20, 2 to 10 Modbus. BACnet is standard. That's all standard. We can go up to 32 points, like I discussed on the controller with the M controller digitally, or if you got a bigger job, 128 on the Q controllers. I think the competition's a little more limited on that. We do offer combustible electrochemicals, and the IR sensors are typical for the CO2s and the QIRFs, which are free on detection systems. We are UL 2075 for CO, and they are not certified for life safety. Does that make sense? Because you guys have dealt with Honeywell, the Honeywell products. Do you find that the ACI product's easier to use for that, or not, or any feedback on that?
I'd say once, this is Tom, Mike, once my guys try your product over Honeywell, they don't normally go back.
Okay.
The only reason they ever would be, a spec driven job where Honeywell is in there. But other than that, from what I can see, your product is definitely above the analytics product.
So it's pretty easy to use.
Yep, I agree.
Hey, Mike, it's TSR.
Hey, TSR.
I agree with Tom 100%. Anyone that I have had that has converted from Honeywell to the ACI product, unless it's spec'd, that's pretty much what I pitch mostly, but that's also what I'm getting requests for now.
Okay. Another idea too is if there's a specification, and I know there's a boatload route across this all the way across the country that, because a lot of there's a lot of places that are just becoming more and more familiar with the product line. That if an engineer does specify, let's say MSA or Honeywell, and we're not listed in it, if you need us to, we can call the engineer. We can be nonchalant about it and talk to them about including us as an approved equal in the spec too.
Have you talked about your dual sensors that Honeywell can't match or no?
Yeah, well, that's coming up on the next slide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So here's just a typical network diagram that we put together, just to give you an idea. Networking, M controller, there's 4 sensors, CO. You can mix and match. It doesn't have to be CO and NO2. Just doesn't matter if it's a Q5 or a Q6 series. And we help you guys with the layouts. You guys have been really good about sending us mechanical drawings, and I think we do a pretty good job of getting back and laying it out for you guys and making it pretty simple. Okay, here's the Q6. Just a typical CO NO2. You don't have to have NO2 if somebody else has, another
Oxygen, methane.
yeah, just doesn't matter. It'll communicate back through the front end there. The remote sensor, of course, does not have the LCD. That's why we can become more competitive. Like I said, if we get bigger jobs where we use these combo sensors, which makes a lot of sense, we can get pretty competitive for you guys to help you get that job too. The programming, everything's visual on the main board there, which would, in this case, would be the CO sensor. That's usually located about 5 feet up in the air. You still have 3 relays on each unit displayed at the main board. It will scroll through. They do not, the one thing that the Q6s do not have are analog outputs. These are communicating devices only.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's the only problem I ran into, Mike, was that.
Yeah. Yeah.
no analog out. So
Yeah, and that just depends on, it really comes down to how big the job is, because typically we don't run across too many that just use straight home run analog inputs back because it's so doggone expensive. But if you get into retirement communities where there's underground parking and you've only got a couple of them, then you're just going to have to go back to the Q5s and run direct. That's about as efficient as you can get.
These can be used as a standalone system in a small area, like a, 1 or 2 car garage area, that all they need to do is just turn on a fan. You can put the Q6 in there, and that can be a standalone, and just, either the CO gets the level, NO2 gets the level, trips the fan, trips the relay, turns the fan on, exhaust the space. So for small jobs, the Q6 can be a standalone type system.
If you're using the relays.
If you're using just the relays.
Right. Yep, that makes sense. And so if you have like a job that has, say, 8 CO and 8 NO2, and we use, say we use 8 Q6s, that will actually be 16 addressable points.
Addresses.
That's kind of key, because that's different than what we'll talk about on the BACnet version of this, which is the next slide. Questions on this unit here? Okay. So here's the BACnet version of it. Once again, the Q6 and the B6 are the same price. It's a BACnet MST protocol. Now the difference between the B6 is, like, say we just use the same scenario, we had 8 sensors instead of having 16 addressable points.
Just 8.
It'll be just 8 on the BACnet. So that's kind of huge, because I think we kind of max out or tell customers that about what, 62 devices on a BACnet
Usually on
is max.
MSTP, it's RS-45 rules say 32.
32. Okay. So otherwise, pretty much the same. You've got all the relays. It's just the BACnet version. It's all displayed on the first screen, just like the Q6s. Same pricing. Make sure you use ComWire. Dave can talk a little bit about the typical wiring that a customer should use on that.
Yeah, the manufacturer recommends Belden 9841 ComWire for the RS-45 runs. That has everything to do with the resistance of the wire, and I'm sure you guys have run across 9842 or Belden 9841 are equal. That's really important for running the ComWire. We've run into a couple times where somebody's run just regular twisted pair and it does not work.
Okay. Questions on the B6 side?
So this is just a typical how the Q6 would be wired. This is for Q6 or B6. It's going to be an RS-45 internal communication between the sensors, and then it will also have the RS-45 communication from Q6 to Q6 to Q6. So as you can see, there'll be an umbilical between the sensors from the main and the remote for power and communication. And then there'll be the other RS-45 communication on that upper right that shows going on the main bus.
And we can send this all to you too, and break it down if you need to, but any questions on the wiring? Guys all good? Did we
All
lose-
good.
Oh,
Yeah, we're all good. Yep.
okay. All right, we'll keep rolling here. Just a few of the gases that we offer. You guys are probably pretty familiar with them. Hydrogen for batteries, just different ranges on it. We have sold pretty much every single one of these. So if you have something that doesn't show up on the website or whatever, always, of course, call us and we can get that back to you. Positioning. I have a full list of this if you need it. Tells you the location below the ceiling, above the floor, how many square feet typically, and radius. We can typically do this for you too if you or your customer requested on your mechanical drawings. I'm gonna get right into. I'm gonna skip over this. We're gonna get into the programming. And with every job too, the software is included. It's not external, you don't have to pay for that. If you can't take a disk, we can also do that on a thumb drive. What's nice about that is, and Dave will touch base on this as he is our programming guru here. But the nice thing about it is you can have the guys in the field installing this project. And what you can be doing internally is doing all the programming on your laptop. You can download it and take it to the field and then install it out there, and it's all done. You don't have to do anything in the field. That's what's kind of nice about it. The other thing nice about it too is once you do a job or two, and it doesn't matter who the end user is, if you know that this job's really close to this job, you can just do a save as in programming and just change the amount of sensors or the kind of sensors, and it just knocks down the amount of time that it takes to do a whole system from the start. And we've had guys that have initially done it. It's taken them about an hour to get used to it. They call in here, Dave walks them right through everything. The second time they do it, they pretty much do it themselves, and it takes them about 10-15 minutes to do the jobs. So further ado, I'm going to let Dave talk about the programming and the software.
Okay. Yeah, so the MView or the M controller can be programmed either using the MView software or it has the onboard keypad. I strongly recommend using the MView. It makes it so much quicker and so much faster. As you can see on that left-hand side, it just, calls out, the sensors 0 through 15. You just click on that and you click how many sensors you have. You describe what the gas is, put the, whether it's CO or NO2 or, whatever. We always recommend, go ahead. Yep, right there. So that kind of shows, what the gases are in ppm. So you get all that. Go to the next one. And then what you have to do is then set up your relays. You can determine how many relays you need. The M controller has 3 relays on board. I always say use the voting mode. And what that means is that, let's say you have 8 sensors. And when you put it in voting mode and put the voting number down, all that means is that if any one of those sensors detects the gas, it's going to turn on the relay. And then when we go to the next page, here's where you're assigning the relay, the sensors to the relay. You're determining what the on concentration is and what the off concentration is. And it doesn't matter whether it's a CO or an NO2, you can put those different concentration levels to one relay so that if any of those, that first trip level is reached by any of the sensors, that relay will trip and turn on the fan and start venting air. This is a really quick and easy way to do it. Very, very easy. I do have some, what I call my EasyCal instructions that will make it just really kind of a no-brainer on how to use the MView software. And I also have those instructions for the manual through the keypad programming also. So either way, we can make it very, very easy for you guys. Any questions?
I love you. I love you, baby. Yes, mommy does. I love the baby. Mommy loves that baby.
Sorry?
I can't hear that very well.
Okay.
But anyway, I went back to the other slide because as you can see there's the sensors 0 through 7. And then by coming back down here, 0 through 7, and they're all on, from the M controller, they're all on relay number 1. So just to give you an idea how that works. So any one of those sensors hits those concentration levels, that'll click that relay, and whatever fan or fans that you have will turn on and go from there.
And you can do that with relay number 2 also. Let's say, you know, this will be your first trip point. You can set relay 2 up for a second alarm level, you know, let's say for 50 parts per million for CO and 3 parts per million for NO2. You can then have relay 2, you know, whatever you want it to do, turn on a horn and strobe, turn on a second fan. And then the third relay could be, you know, the same trip levels that would, you know, then close a relay that would be a remote alarms someplace else to you know, let somebody know that, okay, something's going on in the parking garage. So all these relays are programmable to whatever trip levels and alarm levels you want.
Yeah, here'd be relay number 2 with the different levels for the sensors. Does that help?
It's good.
Okay. Okay, that kind of probably went through it. There's a lot of stuff to cover, but hopefully we gave you guys a good generalization. I do have another PowerPoint on the Freon detection system. That's a lot shorter. Now, if you guys have time for that, or you want to do it another time, you let me know.
I think that'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it, Mike.
All right. Can you see the new screen?
Yep.
Okay, so basically our Freon detection system, QIRF, I'll just generalize right off the top. What I really like about this is it's simple. You know, one sensor covers 7,500 square feet. If you have 2 chillers, that are the same Freon, you don't need to have 2 sensors. You can put it in the middle, mounted about 12 to 18 inches off the floor. Very easy, no sampling tubes. It's just, okay. It's just really simple. We bring it back to a controller. We have an LCD on the outside of the room. We have the strobe, and I'll get into this as we go here. But the other really nice feature too, I guess I'll talk about that in one of the next slides coming up, is let's say that you guys got one on the shelf and a customer comes in and you have an R134A and he needs an R407. You don't have to send it back. We can walk you through, or once you get familiar with it more, you can reprogram it once you power it up to R407, R410, R50510. It doesn't matter. And that's what's really nice about it too, the feature there. Plus it has 3 relays on board as well.
Yeah, to go into the program and change from one refrigerant to another is really, really easy. And that makes it your advantage because, you know, you don't need to then place an order for another one and wait for it to be shipped. You can just take it off the shelf, change it, and man, you're good to go and install it.
Yeah, and these sensors, because they're infrared technology too, the sensor lifespan typically is like 13 years. So it lasts a long time. And I know for a fact that it's extremely sensitive. I've got a customer in Indiana and they purchased their refrigeration company and they bought like 80 of them. So they thought they'd do a test and they were about 50 feet away and they dropped some Freon down and boom, it picked it up just like that. So it's extremely sensitive too. Plus it has 3 relays on board. Yeah, Just to go through it, standard 4 to 20, RS-45, 2 to 10, 3 individual relays on it, and that can be programmed to whatever you need. If sometimes specifications are different, but standard is 500, 750, and 1,000 ppm, except for the R123, of course. And the magnetic keypad that comes with it, correct?
Yep, there's a magnet tool that comes with the QIRF, and that's how that's programmed, just using the magnet tool. It doesn't have to be the same tool that comes with it. It could be, if it gets lost, you can just go to the hardware store and pick up, one of those magnet tools that are used for picking tools up off the floor, that thing that mechanics use.
Right. And typically on the QRF systems too, because they're you don't run into systems where you need 8 of these in a big mechanical room or whatever. I typically lean more towards the M controller instead of the Q4C controller, just because of the flexibility. The cost is not that much difference, and I just think there's more flexibility on it. So if you see when we do a job, it may only have 1 QRF. We're thinking out for the future and for the flexibility of adding on or anything like that too. The other thing is I don't have on here is if your engineer calls out that they have to have BACnet as a interface, the only way we can go with that is the Q controller, and that's IP, not MSTP. So keep that in mind as well. Typically mounted 18 inches off the floor, and usually there's a pad where the chillers are. It's pretty simple installation. As far as calibrating or bump tests, Dave can touch base on that and set you up with the components you need.
Yeah, usually, everything, the devices should be checked, and calibration check and bump test once a year with whatever the refrigeration gas that's being used. We recommend using 20.9% oxygen for the zero gas. Do not use anything with nitrogen based or with a nitrogen balance, because that is a heated infrared sensor that nitrogen comes out pretty cold, and it can damage the nitrogen or the IR sensor. So make sure it's 20% oxygen, 20.9% oxygen for your zero gas.
And of course, here's the Q4C controller and the M controller. Differences. Just a couple of the, and I've got a couple network diagrams coming up that will show everything being laid out. Of course, the M switch is for the M controller, Q4C, basically an override switch. We like to, most specifications call one for inside and outside the room. And of course, on the right-hand side, your horn and strobes that tie into the controller as well, different colors, whatever you need. Here'd be a typical network diagram for 2 QRFs. You've got the inside of the mechanical room, outside mechanical room, 2 strobes, 2 M switches, 2 QRFs, and a Q4C. If your customer needs a panel inside the room as well, we can do that. We just haven't been asked for that yet. It's normally in the outside, so you can tell what's going on inside the room before you go in. Let's see, here'd be one with the optional panel inside, pretty much the same setup, M controller version of it.
Is that the only way you can do that, Mike? Because a lot of them will want a remote, you know what I mean? Outside.
Sorry about that.
Just with the M controller, is that the only way you can do 2 displays?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So as you can see, these, they're pretty easy to wire, pretty easy to install. We've got a lot of these systems out there right now, and customers are pretty happy. So as far as the Freon system, that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Yeah, when it really comes down to it, the whole ASHRAE, ASHRAE 15, B52, it's very, very simple. You know, you just, you got your sensors,
Yep.
2 strobes, 2 switches, and your panel. That's really what it comes down to.
Now, if you've got chillers that have 2 different types of freons, you will have to have 2 separate sensors.
Yeah, one for each kind of freon.
Right, exactly. But if they're both the same, and typically 7,500 square foot mechanical room is pretty big, you just put one in between the chillers, you're going to be, you more than have enough coverage. And that, the nicest thing about this is that with that infrared sensor, there are no sampling tubes, and it's just real solid. Not had a return on it, so it's been real stable. And that's pretty much what I got, guys.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Mike, can we get a sample of that strobe and horn?
What's that?
A sample of the strobe and horn?
Yes. Yeah, I can get you out one, no problem.
Yeah, I sold a couple of them. I just want to have one to either leave at the counter or show customers. So
Yeah, no problem. Get that up for you. Anything else? You know, what you need us to do for you?
Hey, Mike, if you open up the M controller, is there a picture of Brant in there?
I'm sorry, what?
If you open up the M controller, the access door to the controller, is there a picture of Brant in there?
Well, we don't want it to blow up. Sorry, no, I didn't mean that. Too funny. I love it.
I think the pricing on everything is great. Like I said, the only issue I ran into was the analog out because it was just a standalone, dual sensor setup. So
Yeah. Now, the other thing we'll ask you, going back to the Q6s and Q5s, one question that's, especially if you're going to be turning fans on or off, key question is to know whether the fans are VFDs or whether they're on off. Most of the time they're on off, which is perfect. We're all set up for that. But if they're going to be VFDs and you need to control them through the M controller or the Q controller, we'll need to know that because there's an analog output card that goes in there. And that changes that. We don't come across that a lot, but enough. And that's a key question for you guys to ask.
So I have a question on that. So all VFDs require a start signal and an analog signal. Can you do that out of the M controller or the Q controller? So can you fire a relay along with the analog?
Yeah, you can do that. What I've found with the VFDs, they do run on an analog signal normally.
Yeah, but you also need to have a start signal, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, and that would be a relay.
Yep.
Usually, what I've found in the specs is if from the gas control system, the fan might be running normally at 10%, and the sequence of operation shows, okay, if the gas is detected, it sends a relay signal to turn to 30%, let's say. And then, once that relay signal is made, the fans go to 30%.
Yeah, yeah, you can.
If it goes to the next level, then it might, the next alarm level, then it might go to 80% or
Right.
whatever it is. So, and then once it goes below that, relay opens up, the fan drops down to 30, goes below that, then it goes back to its normal operating of 10.
Yeah, they're just digital inputs. Most the drives we sell have, 5 or 6 standard speeds you can set depending upon the analog, the digital input that you give to it. So
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. What other questions?
That's all. Can you make your data sheets easier to read?
If there's, when we get done too, so if there's anything you guys need from us, more network diagrams or anything like that, let us know. We can send them out to you.
Yeah, the layout is awesome for us. You know what I mean? It just makes everything so much easier.
Well, I think one of the biggest advantages are that you have this stuff in stock.
We actually have a lot of it in stock too, Kevin.
And
Yeah.
if it's spec for the E3 point system, you'd be lucky to get that stuff in 6 or 8 weeks.
Oh, yeah, we push our vendor to make sure pretty hard on that. I mean, there's some things that, just depending on the day, if we sell, 4 or 5 systems and we maybe not have an M controller in stock or a Q controller, they've got them in stock up there, and we've made an effort that it's like a week too. Keep this in mind. We'll always try to, if we have to drop ship directly from QEL to you guys too, we'll do what we can.
Well, Mike, Dave, I appreciate it.
Hey,
Thank you.
you're welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.